When it comes to the comparison between 20-year bonds and 30-year bonds, you find most of the information that is available is generally more skewed towards encouraging you to take out the 20-year loan. The number of bonds that are registered in South Africa at the moment are more than 1.5 million, and a lot of them are in fact 30-year bonds. So if 20-year mortgages are this much better, why do people still take the 30-year option? So today we're going to realistically compare the two and give both of them a fair chance. If you are at the crossroads at this point, hopefully you'll be able to make an informed decision. Or if you're just curious, hopefully by the end of this video, you'll also be a little more enlightened. I'm Sibulela Makwanyane, aka Sibulela the Estate Agent, and welcome to the channel where we discuss all things bond related, specifically for first-time home buyers and first-time home owners. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell for regular updates. When it comes to comparing the two home loan terms, I'm sure you know that the 30-year loan, you're going to pay it for longer, and maybe you're also aware that you're going to pay more interest. A bond worth 950,000 Rand at an interest rate of 10.75%. If you take out the 20-year home loan, you're going to pay about 2.3 million. If you stretch that into a 30-year term, you're going to pay about 3.2 million. So it's a substantially bigger difference. And of course, you are exposed for a lot longer when it comes to things like employment disruptions or any financial hiccups. But on the bright side, with a 30-year home loan, you will be able to access a home of about 10% more than you would if you were taking out the term over 20 years. Or maybe this is an option just because it's going to reduce your monthly repayments. We have all been told that if you purchase a property over 30 years, you're basically just buying a house you can't afford. But flatter me here for a moment. I have a friend who, when she was in her 20s, wanted to buy her first car. Now, Sisters has had some not so nice experiences when it comes to secondhand vehicles and cars with high mileages. So she wanted to purchase a car as close to new as possible. So what she did is she bought an entry-level vehicle, but she bought it with a balloon payment. But she paid every extra last cent she could towards this vehicle so that by the time the balloon effect came into play, she'd already paid off the car. In fact, she paid the car off in about 4.5 years, I think. In this case, my friend could have easily bought herself a car with higher mileage in order to avoid the balloon repayment, but she would have been very uncomfortable throughout her car ownership period. She would have always been asking herself on her way to work, am I going to get there? Is everything going to be okay? When she thinks about traveling down to the coast, it's a matter of, oh my goodness, I don't think I can go because I don't know if I can trust my car. My friend went on to drive that car for about 15 years in total, by the way. She felt no need to upgrade it. The thing about balloon payments, as far as I'm concerned, is it depends what car you're buying and it depends when you buy it. If it's your first car and you need it for work and you're buying an entry-level vehicle, I don't see anything wrong with a balloon payment. The catch comes in when you are buying a luxury vehicle and you're using a balloon payment. The problem comes in when you are upgrading your car. You need a car that is safe and reliable. You don't need to upgrade. You don't need a luxury vehicle. If you are purchasing your first car and you're using a balloon payment, your aim should always be to pay it off as soon as possible. But let's get back to properties. There are people who will deliberately choose to take out a 30-year mortgage instead of the shorter term when it comes to financing their homes. They can be categorized into one of three groups: those that love debt, those that fear being inconvenienced, and those that have found their perfect home. There was a guy who was asked, why did you take the 30-year option to finance this property? And he said, it's because there was no 40-year available. Now, this is an example of somebody who loves debt. Now, this is somebody who will generally refer to a home loan as good debt. So as you can imagine, we're talking about people like property investors. The theory is basically that your biggest outflow on your property portfolio are your bond repayments. Bring down your monthly repayments and you can break even a lot quicker. Lower bond repayments also gives you access to more debt, because if your bond repayments are low, you can buy more properties, which means that you can ultimately increase your assets, thus increasing your wealth portfolio and ultimately your net worth. Also remember that with a 30-year term, you've also got an extra 10 years where you are able to refinance. So say you've had a property for 10 years and you bought it for 1.3 million and your current balance is now R1,000,000. You have got access to this 300,000 through a process called refinancing. The thing to remember about this person who loves debt is that they have no intentions of paying off their bonds sooner. As you can see, the intention is to access the entire 30 years. A like would be appreciated, and if you appreciate the content, go ahead and join the family by subscribing so you can get regular updates. I load new videos every Sunday. The second type of person who takes out a 30-year mortgage is somebody who doesn't want to be inconvenienced. Here we're talking about somebody who has financial commitments, but they don't want to find themselves under pressure. This is somebody who does not like the feeling of being cash strapped, and they always need a little bit of wiggle room in their budget. So we all know that one person who is like, no, if I don't have, 2,000 Rand in my bank account, I feel a bit uncomfortable. Whatever that amount might be, they just hate that inconvenience of feeling under pressure. This might be somebody who earns a basic salary, but most of their income comes in through extra work or maybe commission or something like that. And even though they can afford a bond repayment of X, they would rather commit to a price which is slightly lower just to be safe. This might be somebody where in the family there is a chronic condition and every now and again medical bills flare up. So they don't want to find themselves in a position where there is so much financial commitment that they one day find themselves in trouble. There are some people here who will aim to pay off their bond as quickly as possible by contributing extra income towards their bond. Often you'll find that these are people who intend to pay off the bond over 20 years anyway. They just don't want the commitment of the higher bond repayments. The third person is somebody who has spotted their ultimate home. It's just that it's slightly above their limit. Here we're talking about somebody who has, let's say, 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and they ideally want a 3-bedroom house. But the houses they can afford with their 3 bedrooms are in an area that, they don't really like. It's not ideal. It would really be quite a compromise. So they go for the option of the property where there is 3 bedrooms in the area that they do like, and they would just rather pay it off for a little bit longer, but have the convenience of safety and comfort and knowing that they will stay there for years to come. Sometimes we look at people who take out 30-year mortgages and we assume they're living above their means, when actually it's just somebody who's got a different strategy from us. You might be thinking, I'd rather buy what I can afford now and then upgrade in a few years. Whereas this person might be like, I'd rather commit to pay a bit longer now so I don't have to upgrade in a few years. Also take into account that somebody who takes out a 30-year bond intending to stay there for a long time might end up in the same position as somebody who purchases for a 20-year contract and then after 10 years decides to upgrade. So after 10 years, you then take out a 20-year bond. So you are both bond-free after 30 years. Again, there are some people here who will be happy to pay off their bonds for the entire 30-year prescribed period, and there'll be those that want to pay extra every month to pay off the bond ASAP. I'm always harping on about paying off your bond early, so let's take a look at the numbers as far as paying extra is concerned. On a bond of 950,000 at an interest rate of 10.75%, on the 20-year loan, you're looking at about 9,700, and on the 30-year term, it's about 8,900. Remember we said that the 30-year bond gives you 10% more purchasing power, right? So if you take your 30-year bond and you pay an extra 10%, which is 446 Rand, you will pay off your bond in 20 years. Should you pay an extra 5%, then that will be 223 Rand and you pay off the bond in 25 years. Yes, you will find it hard to find that extra income in the first year or 2 years, but as your salary increases over the years, it will become easier to find that extra money. So you're not able to find that 223 Rand in the first year, in the second year, but maybe in year 4, you find you can come up with 200 Rand to pay towards your bond. And this increases annually as time passes and your income increases and your lifestyle adjusts. You could, like my friend, end up paying off your bond sooner than somebody who took out a 20-year mortgage. So despite the 30-year loan being given such a bad rep, there really are times when it makes sense. Say you want to buy your property when the market is just right to buy, but the property you want is just slightly out of your budget. You can try to wait for maybe 8 months to a year to see if you can come up with this extra cash. But then you might find that the market changes and house prices increase, meaning you can no longer afford this property. So now you've missed your opportunity, and it might take another, let's say, 3 years for the market to tip. And that is now 3 years and 8 months that you could have been contributing towards your bond. The 30-year mortgage is not as dangerous if you enter the contract with a plan. If my friend had come to me for advice before she bought the car, I would have said to her, either you must take a demo or you must just wait until you can afford somebody for something else. But I would have said that a balloon payment is a definite no-no. Why? Because I didn't understand her strategy. As a first-time home buyer, your strategy should always be to pay off your bond as soon as possible. Now, for some people, that might be 17 years. For some people, that might be 23 years. Just because you've signed up for a bond of 20 or 30 years doesn't mean you have to take up all those years to pay it off. If you're using the longer term to upgrade your home, that's a totally different story. You don't have to have a nicer car. And you likely don't have to have a nicer house. If you can only afford your upgraded home on a 30-year contract, I would say you should rather stay in your property until you can afford that upgrade with a 20-year term, or maybe you want to look for something smaller. I hope it's clear that I'm not promoting the 30-year home loan. I'm simply suggesting that it's not as inferior as we have been told to believe. If you can, I still 100% say go with the 20-year term. There are times when you apply for a home loan and the bank automatically just defaults it to 30 years. In order to avoid that, you would want to do a pre-approval in order to know what you can qualify for before you shop. Check out this video all about pre-approvals, and I'll catch you in the next video.